Good evening, beautiful people. It's nice to host you again today to the LOVE-A-THON 2.0, celebrating DinmaNedum's 21st wedding anniversary. And I hope that from the last week's session, you have gotten value. And so today we'll be looking at vulnerability, embracing vulnerability. And we'll be having a beautiful couple run us through alongside DinmaNedum. I hope like me, you are interested and you are hopeful and you are, all set up to take everything you can take from this session. So before I bring them in, I'd like to know where people are joining in from, because that would be nice. And, really understand why you decided to give us your time again this weekend. May I know where you're joining us in from, where you're joining in from? That would be so lovely. If you can hear me, let's know where you're joining in from this evening. My name is Oluchichi Nonyeremi Bosonu, and I'll be your anchor for this night's session. So where are you joining in from as we get ready to have Team DinmaNedum and Team Adigwe host us and talk to us about embracing vulnerability for deeper intimacy, naked and not ashamed. Sometimes when people hear naked, they cringe. Sometimes people don't want to be seen naked. You don't want the curves. You don't want them to see the pot bellies. You don't want them to see the fatty points. You don't want them to see the scars. You don't want them to see the stretch marks. But today, we're going to show you how beautiful it is to be naked and not ashamed. So, can somebody tell me what it is about it for you? Where are you joining me from? Where are you joining me from? While we wait for people to join us, I would want to drop an icebreaker here. What does vulnerability mean for you? What does vulnerability mean for you? What does vulnerability mean for you? What will make it easy for you to be vulnerable with your spouse? Have you ever paused to ponder that intimacy is actually inviting your spouse on a journey to look into you, to see all the inner parts of you, the parts that you don't want anybody to ever get to know, but you're willing to let them into that area of your life? What does vulnerability mean for you? I say again tonight, part of the celebration of the 21st anniversary, wedding anniversary of DinmaNedum is to run this LOVE-A-THON where they share their lives with people, telling you that the journey of marriage requires hard work. The journey of marriage can be sweet and is worth it. Of DinmaNedum is to run this LOVE-A-THON. So I can see that Catherine Chika, thank you, Catherine, for joining us. Ngozi, thank you for joining us from Lagos. Lydia Ohajinwa. Thank you, Lydia, for joining us from Enugu. So I ask you all, what does vulnerability mean for you? What does vulnerability mean for you?
Smartphone connected.
I'm waiting to see who is answering my question on what vulnerability means for them. Nobody wants to take me on. I'm not seeing the comments. I'm just seeing where people are. Okay, let's see. Oh, somebody says non-judgmental. Asibelua, thank you for telling us. Non-judgmental. So I hear from that you're simply saying, I want to be able to tell everything as it is and not feel judged. So vulnerability for Vivian means non-judgmental. Who else is willing to share what vulnerability means for them? Being open. Muturayo, thank you. Being open. I would wait to get a few more answers and responses to this as we prepare ourselves for this encounter tonight. Being open. Who else has something to tell me about what vulnerability means for them? And remember, I just told you something now, is you inviting your partner to say, come into me and see, look into me. Somebody says, not ashamed. Somebody says, being yourself with your partner, your worries, weaknesses, concerns, and everything about me without any restrictions. Fantastic. Being yourself with your partner, your worries, your weaknesses, your concerns, and everything about me without any restrictions. So, Lydia, would it be safe to say that you just want to be your authentic self? Not ashamed, being open, non-judgmental. Fantastic responses tonight. Who else wants to tell us anything else they have about themselves, about how they see vulnerability? Any more questions? Any more answers before I begin to bring in tonight teamDinmaNedum? And before I bring them in, I'll just want to quickly read something about them. teamDinmaNedum are fondly called the king and queen of happiness and human flourishing. I'll ask you to keep answering your questions or giving me your answers as to what vulnerability is as I read their profile. They are leading voices in the Nigerian family life coaching sector, bringing happiness and wholeness to individuals, families, and educators who influence the well-being of families, children, and youths. And Julita punctuates us by saying, being able to feel totally safe with my partner, that for her is vulnerability. And so I go on. They are the lead coaches and trainers at the Start Your Marriage Right Academy, a family-centric school where professionals are trained to offer premarital and marriage coaching, and individuals are coached to build a strong foundation for their marriage right from the start. And I had a beautiful friend and sister say this to me. She said, when you want to put on the foundation, for those who use makeup, you want to put on the makeup, you need to have the foundation. Because if you don't put on the foundation, the primer and the concealer and all the other things that would need to be applied will not be able to stay on to give you a perfect finish. And so at the Start Your Marriage Right Academy, where the king and queen of happiness and human flourishing are the lead coaches, we want to lay for you the foundation to go on this marriage journey so that you don't run with flat tires, so that you don't encounter accidents on the way. While you may have incidents, you would have been braced up with all the tools like your fire extinguisher, like your jack, your spare tire, like your water, like your touch light in the case of the times when you're driving in the dark, to be able to respond to those situations. How beautiful it is for you if you come into this place to get the right kind of knowledge. And so I continue as I talk about them. They also co-founded Happy Phi Humanity Project with an audacious vision to make the tools for optimal mental and emotional well-being, human flourishing, and meaningful living accessible and affordable to at least 1 billion humans by 2031. Will you be one of those who will help achieve that dream as you join and partner with this dream tonight? Nedum brings his wealth of knowledge and expertise of over 25 years experience as an entrepreneur, and you need to listen to him. You know, when it comes to setting up structures and system, oh, you need to listen to Uncle Nedum. You sure will be glad that you listen to him. It will show you the input and the impact that having systems and structure in your relationship would have for you. Nedum, so he's also a master's degree holder in guidance and counseling, psychology, and a certified practitioner of family systems engineering, a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, and a certified results coach and performance consultant into his work with families, parents, and youths to help them navigate the different phases of their lives effectively. The Queen of Happiness herself, Dimma, is a rigorously trained and certified positive psychology coach, a 6 seconds certified emotional intelligence assessor, and a master practitioner of neuro-linguistics programming. She serves as the director of studies at the Institute of Family Engineering and Development, where they have trained over 1,000 family life practitioners in the family systems engineering approach to family and nation building. I'm a product of that system. And I'm also a product of the system of the Start Your Marriage Right Academy, where you have the Preparing for Bliss licensing practitioners. So I can't be inviting you to something that I haven't benefited from. I'll ask you to welcome them heartily as they come in to share with us today, alongside the Team Adigwe, Embracing Vulnerability for Deeper Intimacy. Welcome, people, and keep telling me, keep chatting me and telling me what vulnerability means for you as they answer the questions tonight. Welcome, Team Dimma and Nedum. Welcome. So good to
Thank
have you.
you. Thank you, Oluchi, for this warm introduction, and to every of our people out there who are joining us from everywhere, all over the world. We are again excited on day 2 on LOVE-A-THON, which the general topic is building stronger foundation. And this is our legacy project that started after our 20th wedding anniversary. And we decided, how are we going to keep enlarging our influence, sharing our stories, why family ought to be beautiful, lovely, why married couples should enjoy their marriage. And together with other professionals, we think the best way to make it a legacy is to keep championing this knowledge about family and marriage. And so today, once again, you are welcome to this topic, embracing vulnerability for deeper intimacy. And it's one of the things that God, who created marriage, has called us to be: naked and not ashamed, and becoming one. And the question that will go through your mind is, why should I share everything? Why should I be open? Why should I even tell my partner the things that are going inside me that they're not comfortable, that they should not know, they should know about, or they should not know about? And to be frankly speaking, when you look at the stories, especially online, for those who are facing divorce and those who are separated, somehow the stories they talk about their partner, their intimate moments, the ugly things they face, including the ones their partners shared to them, you wonder, should I be vulnerable to my partner? Should I share secrets with my partner? What if? What if? What if he takes them to social media where we are no longer in love, where we are no longer together, where we are no longer enjoying these moments that I keep running my lips up and down? What will be my shame? And we have seen it so far that even when we go through what couples share when they are fighting, you imagine, of what use is love? Of what use is marriage? But definitely, we will not allow these experiences and that narrative to make us limit the opportunity to be the best we can for each other, to be the best of this relationship and this partnership we are for. And that is why this topic came at a very crucial time in our nation building, in our family formation. Vulnerability for deeper intimacy. And once we embrace it, this one time we have to fall in love with one person. This one time we need to share our whole life with one person. This time we have the opportunity to be all we can be with one person. Why not be there? And so this topic is not just for us to share our own side of the story, and also through the teaching, we have also our bosom friend who will be coming to also share all with us this. And we'll be hearing from you through also the comment sessions, your questions, and also some of the things that you have also faced through being vulnerable with your partner. And so I start this topic by sharing one of Joe Harris' window model that we learned through the time we are passing through some classes. And it talked about 4 windows. The first one is open area. And this is the public self of knowledge about you and also about other people, about your partner that you are aware of, that you are openly share, that is in the public domain, that no matter what is happening, people knows it already, you know it already. There's the blind area, the information about yourself that you don't know, but other people know, including your partner. And you cannot know about yourself in that regard except they tell you. There's also the private self, the hidden self, the area that only you know and nobody else, including your fears, including your insecurity, including the gray areas in your life, including these things that if you don't reveal them, it goes to the grave with you. There's the last, the undiscovered and the unknown area. These are parts of your life that are still in the future, not revealed yet. You don't know it, nobody know it. We are still wishing sometime in the future it can be revealed. What is the area of this Johannes widow we are trying to discuss today? It is the private self, the hidden self, the things you know about yourself, that if you don't reveal them, you don't share with them, you don't share those thoughts and feelings, your partner will not know about it. And that is why also in the second part, which is the blind self, there are things about your partner that your partner knows that you don't know, except your partner shares them with you. Vulnerability also includes that there is a safe and secure environment whereby your own partner is free to also share things about you he or she is noticing, he or she is witnessing, he or she feels safe to share with you without no consequences of such, without no negative barrier or embarrassment, because he or she was open to share that with you. So when we talk about vulnerability in marriage, what do we mean? It refers to the willingness to be open, to be honest, and to be authentic with your partner, despite the risk of potential hurt or rejection. The key word is willingness. So you are not coerced. You are not asked to do so. You were just open because in sharing that about you, your partner comes to know you better. He comes to relate with you better. He comes to know that part of you that is soft. He comes to know that part of you that is weak. And you are not ashamed and you are not afraid to share it. I must say that vulnerability in marriage is a self-disclosure, a willing self-disclosure of yourself, not just about the past, but also about the present, so also about the future. I remember the first time we went for getaway, which we usually have for ourselves during our first wedding anniversary. And we are able to like share what are the things that we are feeling about relationship. What are the things we are feeling about this marriage? And one of the things we got as a result of that was in sharing ourselves, we're able to know the things in our thoughts, in things in our minds, and even the things that we're uncomfortable to hear. And that was a better way we were able to get deeper, intimate, and more loving to each other. And so, what are the areas you can be vulnerable with your partner? What are the different areas of vulnerability? So we look at the emotional vulnerability, sharing your true feelings, your fears, your desires, and your thoughts. Like I said, in the first time we had this kind of assignment during our first wedding anniversary, and my wife shared something with me. She said to me, if I want to talk to you or tell you something that I am feeling, I will look at your face. Depending on your facial expression, it will help determine if I am willing and able to share. Sometimes when I come close to share and I look at you, boom, the thing will just go off. I will retreat and will not share it. I will also reschedule our next time. Then when I look at your face, it seems you're a bit smiling, welcoming, and I'll be willing to share it. And I'll also tell her, there is nothing wrong with my face. I need to hear you with my ears. So receiving you. Of course, I have to take that feedback. And the feedback is that I need to be cheerful. I need to be open when I want her to speak to me about her thoughts, about the things going on to her mind, because she needs to feel safe and secure. And of course, that is one of the things that we increase and improve vulnerability. The second one is intellectual vulnerability, being willing to learn and be influenced by your partner intellectually. Here comes to about their knowledge. Have you imagined that sometimes, especially when a lady knows more about an issue and is trying to explain maybe to the husband something she knows, and the husband will like, who are you to teach me? Who are you to make me know? And I remember one story that happened when I was very, very young. That was about my parents. My father had a branch in Kaduna while we were living in Zaria. So he went for stock taking, and the branch did so well, so well. And my mother advised him that, look, why not take some capital for there and use it for investment? The thing that came out from my father's mouth was, who are you to teach me? I have been in business before I married you. I had been in this city before I married you. Can't you just keep your mouth shut? And the next year, the capital of that business vanished. So intellectual vulnerability is being open in such a way that your partner can teach and express knowledge in such a way that you are not intimidated and you are accepting it because it will improve the relationship. It will improve even your personal life. It will improve your general family welfare and well-being. The next one is physical vulnerability. Being comfortable about how you look. Being comfortable about your body and sexual openness. One day we were speaking at a not a getaway, at a couples event. So after the event, a 65-year-old man approached him and asked him, please, can you talk to my wife? That I have never seen my wife nakedness. These people have been married for more than 35 years. And what the woman was trying to say is that anytime the wife wants to change, she will use a wrapper, go beside the wardrobe, and cover herself to change. Even when she's betting that they are only the ones in the house, she will still lock the window. So she lock the bedroom with a lock so that nobody can come in. And we were asking, how did you even give birth to all these children? That one is another story. If it's not in the dark or midnight, nothing will happen, because the woman will say, off the light, off the light. And the man keep wondering, don't I have a freedom to even looking at my wife's body, even when it is not about sex? Some people are not comfortable. Some people are. And so you are not ashamed, even when you feel you are too fat, you are obese, even when you think your rod is not too big or is shrinking, are you not ashamed about who you are? These are some of the things that we talked about vulnerability. And the last one is spiritual vulnerability, sharing your beliefs, sharing your values and spiritual struggles. Because when we come together as husband and wife, when we come together to form unity, there's a spirituality we should be open to. There is a weakness of us that can be strengthened by our partner. There's that struggle we face spiritually that we are able to share. Can I openly share with my wife that I am feeling lustful to this person? That I am feeling lustful in the office to this person? And my partner could say, okay, can we have that in prayer? Can we join our hands in fasting and in prayer? Can I be willing to say, oh, I have a struggle with masturbation. I have a struggle about my temper, and anytime you say something, I'm boiling in within. These are some of the struggles that we can share as partners because we are partners in progress. And this is why naked and not ashamed is not just a cliche. It is a reality for couples who want to enjoy deeper intimacy, deeper love, feeling open and vulnerable within their marriage. So what are the things that will help you build vulnerability in marriage? One, vulnerability in marriage will help you build trust. Trust. If you want your partner to trust you, be willing to be open. Be willing to share. And I will share you a story that my wife told me after 2 years in our relationship. When I was about to get married, or when we were about to get married, I brought in front of her a document of my net worth, which includes properties, shares, capital, and all those things. And I said to her, please, this is what we are starting this marriage with. This is what we have that we will start this relationship with. I am presenting it to you so that you can know where we are starting and how we can move from here. So 2 years after that, she shared with me that the moment I said that this is what, I remember that time she was still a student with zero net worth self and a dependent. But 2 years into the relation, he said, do you know what? The moment you shared that thing, I was wondering, have I ever heard where somebody did so? In fact, she said she went home and told her mother, and her mother said, a man like this doesn't exist. But guess what happened? When she started working in one of the commercial banks, if I need her to dry her account, I will not need to say it 2 times. It will happen. In fact, to be honest with you, she will say she has so amount. Do we need it? Do I need it for anything? And this is one of the things that build trust in the place of finance. I am not telling you to do the same, but I'm saying what vulnerability did for me. So it depends what you want out of relationship. 2, vulnerability fosters deeper connection and understanding. Remember, the goals and the visions you have for life cannot be fulfilled by only you. That is why God sent you a partner. There are areas you have strength, there are areas you have weaknesses. There are areas that a combination of your talents and gifts will give a high proportion of outcome, which means that both of you need to be deeper in connection. How can you connect to somebody you don't really know? How can you connect to somebody you can't see the inside of that person? And it encourages growth and learning. Because we are going to grow by continuous learning, it also means we have area of ignorance. Our vulnerability will show up. Our vulnerability will express. And this is a funny one. We met in church, and the time we're about to get married, Dima was, I think, 400 level in school. And our Reverend Father said, I can't marry her because she's educated and I'm coming from the East. After my secondary school, I just finished my apprenticeship for some few years. I wanted to get married. And to be honest with you, when I used to speak or preach at that time, I would think in Igbo and interpret it in English. Because my background was a secondary school in the village, and most of the time we use our vernacular language to teach even mathematics and some of those things. So my thoughts are processed in Igbo. My ideas are processed in Igbo. So converting or translating it to English, there is always grammatical error or one blunder, and she will call me that and say, that is so unca, which means you don't hammer this English. But see where I have come forth now is because of part of her effort and encouragement. And those times she even shares some corrections. Why am I saying that? There is no shame in learning. We are not all fully formed. We are not all fully made. Our partner can be the bridge. Our partner can be that connection. And lastly, it creates more space for sharing. It creates more space. If you can handle vulnerability well, if you can open well, especially if you are the recipient of it, and knowing that this person is putting his life on stake for you, by the way you respond to those vulnerable moments, through your attitudes and decisions, it will increase and improve vulnerability in your relationship, which means you are going to be hearing sometimes things you are uncomfortable with, things that are not so nice and not so good about expressing that person's self, and also including what that person thinks about you. And one of the things I'm going to share that will be funny was when Dima told me that she loves me exceedingly. And she asked me, do I love her exceedingly? And I started laughing. I said, I know I love you, but this exceedingly part, I am not part of it yet. You know, she was angry that how can she love me exceedingly? I said, now you created exceedingly. But now, it's not only exceedingly, it's exceedingly excess. And this is what vulnerability does. You know, so your partner can share something and you are free to say that, you are free to accept that. So lastly, how do we practice vulnerability in marriage? It requires courage. It takes a lot of courage because you are so afraid about the outcome. Will it be accepted? What if it's a backlash? What if that person uses it against me? So it takes a lot of courage to share. Second, you must have active listening practices and empathy. When somebody is sharing or your partner is sharing the things that are not so comfortable, how do you listen? Do you listen attentively? Or do you listen, you are disturbing me, you are worried, why are you even sharing this? Or do you look so surprised in such a way that the person is imagining, I don't think this is true about you? And so you must be open, you must listen, and you must show empathy, especially where the person is weak. You can do tapping, you can say what I understand you, I know what you're passing through. We are through together in this. Your secret is safe with me. So your response and your attitude are very, very important. The third one is non-judgmental and acceptance. Because to be non-judgmental is not an easy thing. You can say it with your mouth, but in your head, you're already judging the person. And so you are a former court member. So you were a former person that used to disturb and rape people in school, and I came to marry you. You may not say it out, but you start suspecting the person. When he comes in late, you begin to say, are you sure he has not gone to one of those courts association? He told me he has repented. I'm not sure this repentance is working. And you begin to add funny things. And so non-judgmental and acceptance means I am with you, with your past, with your present, and with your future. Number 4, we need emotional intelligence, because sometimes in the heated moments of vulnerability, will you be adding fuel and diesel to the insecurities of that person? Because there was a man who was falling short of his finance, and was not doing well, and he was afraid to tell the wife. The reasons is simply because they have an inner competition of who is wealthier. He began to think if he shares that with his wife, the wife will now have a superiority position in deciding and debating who leads the family. And therefore, that man was dying in silence because they didn't have emotional intelligence to handle what not to say and how to say it and how to listen. And lastly, vulnerability will help you be committed in the relationship. Because I know your secrets, because I'm the holder and keeper of your secrets, I can trust you with my future. I can tell you the things that nobody else knows. I can tell you the dreams and the future that I was still keeping, that I know that with you, I can make that happen. And so, my friends, my fellow partners, my fellow men, women in the house, vulnerability will do much more than the fears and the insecurity you think it will bring. Rather, it will deepen your intimacy and make your relationship more enjoyable, flourishing always, day in, day out, in tough seasons, in your high moments. Remember, today, we say sharing your vulnerable moments is one of the things that will make you to be naked and not ashamed. Thank you.
I don't even know what to add now. They've told you people that they did not used to love me exceedingly. But the man, I was telling him to tell you people the story from the beginning. So I will help you people and tell you the story from the beginning so that you see that this vulnerability thing we're talking is not easy. So back in the days when my young brain was not want, and first of all, I do not words mean a lot to me, and I don't say words for saying sake. I need to be convinced of what I'm saying. And back to the story. So meeting in church and all of that, some things had happened. I think we shared this a couple of times, but let me just share it to add context. So Nedum and I were in the youth fellowship in our church, and then we had this group of supposedly people who thought now we Jesus they live for their house. So we had a prayer team, and we were friendly. And this is me in the spirit of vulnerability, because there's no vulnerability without self-disclosure. And so within that young group of people where we prayed together, we had a name, Gideon's Army, because for us we were intercessors standing in the gap. So I was telling one of the sisters in this small group that, hey, it's like I'm catching feelings for this young man. And because maybe my imaginative, very expressive mind, I was trying to tell her that, like, when I see him, like, I like his person and all of that. Just generally women to women gist. Men and brethren. That's how the sister went to tell another sister in the prayer unit that Sister Dima is catching feelings for brother. And back in the days, Nedum was the assistant of Jesus in terms of, you know, how the stereotypical born again and all of that. Sister Dima, I think then I'd already cut my hair at one season. I was into fixing my nails and doing hair. So for them, I was like this half and half Christian. I never fully enter. So nobody imagined that their spiritual brother would have anything to do with this worldly carnal sister that was half and half into God. Anyways, so the sister went and told another sister in this our prayer unit that they say Sister Dima is catching feeling. Like that, all of them come gather themselves, say, catching feeling for our eligible bachelor brother. So We now appeared one evening in my innocence to pray the normal prayer that we pray for night vigil, because we'll have a vigil once in a week. And that was the first time I was hearing this. They can't call this man after we had finished praying and call me and said in the typical Nigerian way, did you tell Sister Dimma that you are going to marry her? The man now, being who he is, looked at them and said, he didn't say anything like that. So they can't say, they say she's catching feelings for you. So imagine if you're in my picture, if you're me, imagine. Then I was about 21, 22, I can't remember, but something in that. No, that was 22. Either I was 22 or 23, because at that time I had gone to school. And this man denied me. But the truth of the matter is that we were not an item. We did not say anything. So I can't say, hey, now they don't disgrace my feelings in public. I'm sure some people that are even related to us that are here are hearing this for the first time. Maybe my mother is here, MSC meeting and say, and you did not tell me all of this. Anyways, so as at then I was struggling to enter school. I had done jammed me 3 times. And I was tired of writing JAM, so they had carried me to Para State Polytechnic to go and do IJMB. If you know what that means, that's like A-level, because at one I wasn't going to write JAM after the 3rd time. But then a young man used to call me, and that was in the days of no GSM. So he would call me in the computer center where I was doing a training whilst I was doing my course, and we'll talk. But after he had denied me in front of everybody now that nothing concerned me and him, when he now calls me, I will not pick the call. So maybe that was when the Holy Ghost, according to him. So I'm sharing this, so it's vulnerability, naked and not ashamed, but I'm going somewhere. So I stopped calling. And maybe when Oga stopped hearing my voice, he now realized that, okay, there was something in his head. And he decided to drive down to Ilori to come and look for me. So now we'll go know whether anything hold us or nothing hold us. Why am I sharing this? So from there, when we start calling, he will now say, I love you. My brother and my sister, from I don't know anything, from I did not discuss anything to her to I love you. If now you, would you not be imagining, is this love real or not? Or is it a sympathy love? Or is it love out of pity? So when the guy will tell me I love you in those days, I'll say me too. So tomorrow he will say I love you, I say me too. Then when I now realized that the love was real love, I started to say I love you too. So as we grew in the relationship and now got married, and I will say I love you exceedingly, he would not say anything. He would just say I love you. So I said, okay, make I dey talk my own. But later he grew to exceedingly. But it was this year. This year we're discussing something. He now said that when I was saying I love you exceedingly, he wasn't saying he loves me exceedingly, so that I will see what he went through when he was telling me I love you and I was telling him me too. So I don't even understand how to. So you put any meaning you want to put to it. So there's a lot we want to talk about vulnerability, but I think it's about time we'll bring in our guests and then maybe we'll tie it in, because I have things I want to share. But I think let's have the Q&A, because time is really running. And I'm seeing Team Adigwe in the background smiling like people that they are pinching. So maybe we'll bring them up. And Nedu, you want to introduce them? Okay. All right. So if there is any couple, first of all, let's leave the woman by the side. Let's start with the husband. If there is anybody that knows teamDinmaNedum well enough, I think it will be this gentleman called Udoka Adigwe, because he's been in the picture right from even the days I will tell him, we're not talking about Dimma here. Focus on vulnerability in marriage before you leave the topic and begin talking about my life. And then, so we've been together all the years from even before. And Yudi was part of this Gideon's family. But you there that day when I call me panel? Because I can't remember.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Were you they speak English for? Were you there the day they call me panel to defend whether Nedum has anything with me? I was just catching feelings for nothing.
Of course, now I was there.
Well, you don't defend me, you just keep quiet.
Defend you, Bao. You are catching feelings now.
let's talk vulnerability. And so you got married to this beautiful young lady who has become part of the family. So if I say we have a clan, Team Adigwe will be one of our clan members, and we are grateful to have them in our lives. So yes, you are welcome. So Nedum has given us a bit of background on vulnerability. I think we just want to hear from you in your own words. What does vulnerability mean? I think you should go first.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Okay. For me, vulnerability is being open. Just for me, plain and simple, being open, not being afraid to be open, not being afraid to be who you are, to say what you want to say, and just be open, be yourself. So for me, that's basically and simply what vulnerability means.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, clearly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so for me, I would say that being vulnerable is being in that place where you're able to bear your heart out to your partner. Is that place where you can be able to be open, just like Udoka said, and not being without the fear of feeling that you'll be judged, or feeling that you'll be mocked, or without feeling that whatever you're sharing with your partner will be used against you. So is that place where you're totally open, to be able to share. And just before we continue, we're just going to say congratulations on your 21st wedding anniversary.
Yay!
We've been a part of it, and we're excited that you're still going strong, and we're happy to be part of your tribe and your clan. Great work, guys. We love you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Team Ajibwe. So let's tie this into intimacy. I always like this, broken down. I don't know the technical English word, but since the day I read a book, or I think I read an article, and the lady was talking about intimacy as being intimacy, I think that stuck. Because intimacy brings to life what intimacy really is, where it is you genuinely desiring for deeper understanding with your partner. And so I want us to look at when you just said vulnerability is not being afraid to be open. Let's tie it into deeper intimacy. How does not being afraid to open, not being afraid to be open with your partner help you become more intimate? How does your partner deeper the emotional connection between both of you just by you being open and not being afraid to share yourself?
You mean
Can you
how
hear
you
me?
are able to because
No, it was
the
cracking.
network was not very clear.
Okay.
Can you
I
say
said,
that again?
how does you said that vulnerability to you means not being afraid to be open. And I said that I love the word intimacy broken down in like intimacy. So we want to tie it together because of the topic. So if vulnerability is not being afraid to be open, how does that deepen intimacy? Can you connect vulnerability with deeper
To
intimacy?
intimacy.
Yes.
Connecting vulnerability to intimacy.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay, intimacy. Okay, being vulnerable, like I said in the beginning, has to do with openness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I remember when I met my beautiful wife. Believe me, she was just like the intimacy was a bit, the relationship with her was a bit strained in the beginning because she was a Jesus daughter, if I could use that word. So in the beginning, it wasn't really, we weren't really connecting that easily when I first met her, because it was as if she saw me as someone that wanted to come and pull her away from the presence of the Most High. Okay? So, but fast forward to some weeks, months, she started opening up, because when I met her, she was attending a Pentecostal church, and my upbringing was Catholic. So in her mind, she was not able to believe that, how can this Catholic man know things of spirituality?
We don't suffer.
So it was a
Okay, Herculean task.
like a Herculean tax, breaking that barrier at first. But once she got to know me a little bit more, and we started being a little bit more intimate and stuff like that, she now saw some little light of spirituality in me. And gradually it was being broken down. It was being broken down. Those barriers were being broken down. So it got to a level that she began to trust me. And the moment she began to trust me, I began to trust her as well. And our intimacy got better. Our relationship got better. I was now able to tell her some things. Believe me, when you use the word, it's easy for people to say, vulnerable, I'm vulnerable, I'm vulnerable. It is not easy, my brother. It is not easy. Because for you to be vulnerable, you need to be able to trust the other person. If you don't trust the other person enough in that particular scenario, there's no way you'll be able to be vulnerable, because you'll be afraid that person might judge you.
Okay.
So I think she can share more light on that as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking that when you're at that place where you're open, where you're able to share without being afraid that you'll be judged, right? It kind of puts you in that place where you're feeling comfortable, with your partner. You're able to relate with them based on how you feel. Like when he shared about when we were dating, and how it was so difficult to break the wall, that I had built around myself. Number one, because I was so scared. I didn't want to get into the wrong relationship. I was so scared. I didn't want to be heartbroken. And then I had like all those cultural beliefs and then certain religious beliefs that kind of built a wall. So there was a particular day we had a conversation. I remember him asking me that, how come sometimes you're so excited about our relationship, and then sometimes, you act very strangely, like somebody that maybe one knot, loosened from my head. So one day I actually sat him down and I told him a lot. I told him, okay, this is who I am. These are my fears. These are my struggles. These are some of the experiences that I've had in the past with some people. It made him to relate with me from that place of compassion. And then I feel it made him become more patient, to understand that, okay, this person is coming from somewhere, and he needed to be at that place where he was open and honest with me. And he was the first person that truly I noticed that he had a genuine interest, about me. He it was different, from every other guy that I'll meet. I'm like, oh, you're so beautiful. Kiriko. He came with something extraordinary, right?
Scope.
So I was able to grow into him. Like, we're able to grow our intimacy when I became open, when sometimes he will even share certain things that were really bothering him. So the more open you are, the more your partner is able to relate with you from where you are coming from. The more your partner is able to see you and understand you. But when you're not open, and then you're waiting for your partner to crack into you, you will find out that there will be a lot of resistance, because that person is trying so hard to meet you at a particular point when you are not even open to share, where you're coming from. So vulnerability, has a lot to do with intimacy, because the more you're able to share yourself, the more you're growing closer to each other, and the more you're building intimacy.
All right, so I was waiting for you people to finish talking all these great points, because you did said something that stuck. So I wanted to clarify it first. So he
Hey,
was telling also that you were not trusting, you were not open and all that. But as you became more intimate, you started to trust. So when you say intimate, the only thing people on social media hear is shining Congo. So I don't know.
hey,
Yes, now have you never? Anytime you say intimacy, everybody thinks sexual intimacy. But Nedum, when
yes,
we started, I started talking about the other forms of intimacy. So I wanted to
intimacy.
bring that out. That intimacy is not only about sex, and I
Yeah.
think maybe we should make that connection before we go to the next question. As much as intimacy is beyond sex, there is intellectual intimacy, spiritual intimacy, and emotional intimacy, and
Emotional.
play intimacy, and all of that. But I, from experience, have also seen that vulnerability, like we said, that enhances intimacy. Vulnerability also enhances spiritual, sexual intimacy, because when you are open to someone, even outside, I like there's one book we read early in our marriage. It said sex begins in the kitchen. And so even when you are not in the bedroom and you are open to someone, talking about your anxieties, fears that are not even sexual related, we want to find out from you, have you seen that in any way affecting your sexual intimacy, whether positively, whether negatively, or from your own experience, there's no correlation, they are not related at all? What would your experience be? Does intimate vulnerability and intimacy in other areas impact sexual intimacy, either for or against?
You want to start first?
Basically, I feel that, I honestly feel that when you're able to become vulnerable with your spouse, right, it draws you guys closer. It makes it easier for you to be able to connect deeply, right? For us, in our marriage, I would say that it has helped to grow us to grow, in all ramifications of the intimacy, whether sexual, whether intellectual, whether emotional. It's actually, I'm able to relate with him as my friend, because there's literally nothing that bothers me now that I don't get to share with him. Unlike when we started afresh, when we started newly, because he's not much of a talkative, right?
Yeah.
So when we got married newly, sometimes, I'm trying to tell him stuff, and he's not responding the way I want him to respond. So sometimes he will come home and he's not talking. Sometimes I'll have to literally touch his mouth and say, Oga, is there something wrong with the mouth? Is it I don't like to talk? I felt that he was always, by himself. And in my mind, I'm like, did this guy now woo me, confuse me, and now bring me to his house and he does not want to talk? So he started noticing that whenever I have any challenge, I would pick my phone, and I'll call my siblings, and then we'll talk. So one day he now asked me, how come anytime you have anything bothering you, you just call your sisters? or you just call your brother. You know me that I'm here, and I say, but you that you are here, that you are not opening your mouth to talk. And sometimes you will tell him everything. Maybe you're frustrated with work, you will explain, talk. He will now tell you that I really think that your boss is right. You know, and at that point, what I really needed to hear is that don't worry, don't worry, it will be okay, or maybe some kind of to comfort me in a particular way. So I would rather call my sibling that will say, don't mind them. Do you get? So when we had this conversation, when he now asked me, how come you're always reaching out to your siblings to, talk about whatever that is bothering you or your parents? I now told him that that's because anytime I reach out to you, I feel like you're not interested. So he now like, oh, it's not like I'm not interested, though, but I'm not so much of a talkative. So by the time, we started, he now started, sitting in to listen more and opening up more. Then it now made it easier for me to relate with him. And then the closer we are, the more we are able to relate with each other. It helps in every aspect of marriage. And when we're talking about intimacy, prior to our marriage, we were not referring to sex. We were referring to emotional intimacy. But for now, I would say that we have grown to that level where we're able to share, where we're able to enjoy our sexual life, our emotional life, our
Every life.
Every life. This girl, say your wife need a like call sexual life. She call everything. Me just you still need to deliver. I will sabi you. So I think what I'm taking away from what you said is that vulnerability begets more vulnerability that begets deeper intimacy.
Exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah, so that's the key thing there. Because your husband observed that it was like you were getting emotional support from your nuclear family, he asked, and you were not like, I beg, I'm not talking, because if I talk, nothing will change. You risked vulnerability to also share with him that it's because when I come, it seems that you're not interested. And he was not like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? In fact, I've had somebody who mandated the wife to not call her family. Even when the wife is going to visit her parents, the driver is instructed. She cannot visit her parents. She cannot visit her siblings. That one is standard. The husband made it like, I've married you. We're building a new family. Your sister is this thing, this thing. She's going to corrupt you. So he banned her from her family, but permitted her to visit her parents. But every time she's visiting her parents, the driver must go with her. And if you are saying that you are visiting by 2 and you're supposed to be back by 4 p.m., nothing is happening in that your father's house that should be beyond 4. So you didn't even look at it. What do you mean? Your siblings are replacing me? Because that takes barriers to vulnerability. For somebody is listening and say, it's nice to talk about this. I think there's an echo somewhere.
Yes.
I'm still hearing the echo. Yeah, I think you've turned something was on, right? It's gone now. Because somebody might be listening to us and say, it's nice to do all of these things, but the times have tried to be vulnerable. I know how it backfired, right? So I'm going to kickstart the conversation. Maybe you share some points and then we'll move it to Team Adiwe on the barriers to vulnerability. Why do couples struggle to be vulnerable? And if I had highlighted one of that is maybe from past experience. I've seen like from past experience, you said something, maybe the person laughed at you or the person did whatever, and you are like, I beg, I don't want that kind of thing. I'm going to stay on my own. Some people also say that they also are not open to vulnerability because in the past they have had what they said used against them. So when your partner tells you something and you use it against them, it hinders vulnerability. And I think I want to say this. For some of the times, when couples use what their partners say to them, it's not every time it's said in a vindictive way. Like, I intentionally wanted to use it against you to hurt you. You could actually also use it like in a casual way, maybe as a joke, as whatever, but your partner gets offended by it. If you're this one, you are smiling too much. Your partner gets offended by it. And that's why I said that.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
That's why I said that vulnerability gets vulnerability. Because in that moment where I say something that I reference something you have said to me and you get offended by it, in my vulnerability, stupidity to you, oh, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean it that way. But some people will not get offended too and now say, "Oh, somebody cannot joke with you." No, because you kill the vulnerability in the moment. So let's discuss what are other barriers to vulnerability that you have noticed. If from your story, we also know that like from beliefs, because Ife had some beliefs around religion, around people that also impacted. So beliefs can also do that.
Beliefs.
That you have like two things you want to share as to barriers to vulnerability.
I think barriers to one of the barriers to vulnerability is the fear of being misunderstood. Yeah, because we all have different ways we interpret meanings to events, meanings to spoken words, meanings to what we think about what happened, and that can make the other person think, I will not be vulnerable with you again when it comes to this aspect. And I want to share one of our experience in the beginning years of our marriage. My wife will go to the market and she will come back and I ask her, where is the statement of account of the market you went to? You know, you went to market, you bought pepper, you bought chicken, you bought meat, a certain amount was given to you. Where is the expenses and the balance? You know, and for her, like, what the hell of kind of question is this? That I require to like share what was sold and how I bought the thing, and perhaps if there is a balance. And the truth is that whatever she requested at that time in terms of finance or money, I do provide. But my idea then was, can we be accountable in such a way that we know how we spend and how we can save and how we can invest? Because prior to that time, I was already writing every day, every expenses I make, including buying pure water then or buy whatever I spend that day. I will write that date and I'll also write how much it is and total it. So I can specifically tell you I spent so and so on this week, this on next month. I can give you even the end of the year, how it was spent, where it was spent, what it was spent for. So I was trying to say, okay, can she have that attitude too? But she saw it in a different way that I'm questioning as if I don't trust her when it comes to money issues. You know, so this made me, in the kind of response I got and the attitude, like I begin to say, what's the problem with this? Because me, I don't have a problem. In fact, before you are asking me, I have given you even the tip of how it was spent. And so when it comes to issues like that now, I will bottle it in and not be willing to ask or don't wanting to ask. But over time, as we grow and become more understanding in the way I am thinking, because I'm thinking for her actually and trying to make her be like me. But what it did later was it enabled us to say, okay, this is where I'm coming from. This is what I mean by this. It is not because of this. And so if partners do not respond in such a way that is positive, the other partner may not be willing to be vulnerable again. And secondly, it's about cultural and societal norms. So the culture, which means the way of life of your people, the way of life of your spirituality, can make you not be vulnerable. A lady went to report to the pastor because the husband said he wanted a blowjob. And the lady reported the husband to the pastor, and the husband is a deacon. in the church. And the pastor, in my view, did not handle it well, because when he called the husband, he said, so you are turning my precious daughter to an animal, to a dog. And the man was surprised that something I was like explaining to you as a preference, you did not respond. You went to report it to somebody that I hold in high esteem and regard. The man became so shameful to even see the pastor again, even when the pastor is preaching or in the altar, because he thinks the pastor knows more than he should know. And because of that, the man withdrew himself. So there are things that if you are not showing very good emotional intelligence and receptivity that is positive, it will hinder and become a barrier in being vulnerable with your partner.
Team Adigwe, so before I call you, it's interesting how conversations beget some things. So whenever Nedum, we've shared the story of Nedum being very analytical and detailed with expenses, and me not being that kind of person. And then in the different times we've shared it, we've looked at it strictly from the point of personality. I'm like, but as he was talking, something just hit me. And I just wanted to share that, because that is also one of the barriers. I remember, especially with the analogy he gave about going to market and coming back. And I remember growing up, my mother would say that my father will tell her to account for everything she has spent. And in my childhood brain, then I'll be like, nobody should account for what? I'm going to make my own money. You can't use money and be doing me one how. So whilst he was speaking, it just came to me that part of that was actually also me rebelling not to become the kind of person that my mother was subjected to have to account. In fact, so that's very spot on. So it brings to my mind that one of the barriers of vulnerability is also the voices that have spoken to us. They'll tell you, don't open up, or if you open up, allow for trouble allowance. Right? And literally, it's like if you allow them, they would, an inch, they want to go a mile. Somewhere we're sharing the story that Nedum shared, and he was talking about being accountable, and we're talking that at the end of every year, we look at our accounts. Even Nedum on his own doing his business presents his financial standing yearly. One man just looked at us and said, I don't understand what is happening to your brain. Because maybe they've also said that if you are that vulnerable to women, they're going to ride you, they're going to do all of those stuff. So I think that was for me also why I acted like that towards that whatever. Don't come and tell me to my mother that will be writing list up and down. So please, Team Adigwe, what are the other barriers to vulnerability that you think makes people not want to be open?
Okay. Thank you very much. While he was speaking, what came to mind instantly was cultural barriers. I remember prior to our marriage, a lot of my friends had said, just like you said, clip her wings. Make sure when you marry her, clip her wings. Make sure you don't allow her to fly. Make sure she doesn't fly. If she flies, she's going to fly beyond your control. And of course, taking that into marriage and everything, I grew up from a background where my father gave my mother wings to fly. And I didn't want to have it any other way. Growing up from a family where my father didn't mind his wife being in front, shining, even if it means him staying at the background. I think I grew up with that. After I met Ife, let me give you another scenario that happened. What happened? We went to an eatery. After we had a lunch and we were going home, I felt the security guard was rude to us. when we were coming in and going out. So when he was about closing her door, she brought out money. No, she said I should give the security guard a tip. I said, no, he has not earned it. He has not earned that tip. And my wife said,
and your girlfriend said,
my girlfriend, then she was still dating. She now said, if you know you're not going to give to him, I will give her my own money. Immediately, the moment she said that, my history flashed into my head. My history, as in my childhood, being with my parents, flashed into my head. That if you don't explain this to her, she might not understand where you're coming from. So after I just let her give the tip. When we're now together, I said, if we say we're going to be together, you should understand the fact that your resources is meant to be my resources, and my resources is meant to be your resources. If we agree that we're not going to give a tip, and you say I'll give him or her my own tip, that means you're already sharing, you are bringing division in our finances. And then you are not bridging the gap of intimacy, rather, you are pushing us apart. So fast forward to when we got married, that culture came in as a barrier. She wanted to at times do her own thing, spend her own money. Being from recalling from things that happened to her from the past as well. So it was a huge barrier then. But after we spoke about it, and she got to find out where I was coming from, it helped us to actually tame that. Another barrier is this, emotional barrier. Emotional barrier, let me give you an example of, a few days ago during the Euros, we were watching Ronaldo cry after he missed a penalty. Ronaldo missed a penalty for Portugal, and he was crying, as in he was in open. And my son said, how can a man cry? Why is Ronaldo crying? How can a man cry? And the word that came out from my wife's mouth was, he's being emotional. He's expressing himself. Now, hearing that, a barrier was broken within me. A barrier of being able to express your emotions the way you feel. If she could not judge Ronaldo for being emotional, definitely she will not judge me for being emotional. If any scenario now happens that probably I'll have to open up to her concerning my emotions, concerning maybe reasons that I might have to even drop a tear or two, I know I will not receive judgment from her, because she has clearly shown me that a man cries does not mean that he's weak. It simply means that he's being emotional and expressive.
Can I add something to what you just said? It's more like some of these barriers can also be fear, literal fear, being afraid that you will be shamed, being afraid that one will be ridiculed can be a barrier. I've had to talk to a couple who probably his wife, revealed certain things to him about herself. But each time they have any form of disagreement, he will start saying it, your family is this, you people are coming from the slum, you don't have anything, so it now has actually, instead of like growing into each other, as in growing together, growing their closeness, it brings them wider apart. So sometimes you find out that his wife hides information from him. Even when she's going through a lot of things, she hides it from him because she fears that he will shame her, right? And then from past experiences, oftentimes you will notice that the way certain things is done in one's family of origin can influence, you know, the new nation that is the family that both of us are in, right? So I remember we were doing something, I can't really remember how it's, you know, what exactly was the bone of contention. And my husband told me that in his home, that his mom doesn't do things like this, that he feels this is disrespect, right? So when we talked over it, and I'm like, okay, so how does this mean disrespect to you? Then he was like, wait a minute, that it doesn't really mean disrespect though. That how come he has even been thinking like that, you know? So at that point, we noticed that we needed to let go of certain things that were disempowering our relationship from our families of origin. We only needed to adopt the things that we felt that worked, right? Because when one gets into marriage, and I remember people telling me clearly that you are a man pan, because everything you want to do, you are telling your husband, you people are going for events together, you are a man pant, you know. I felt that it had to do with stereotypes or cultural myths, so to speak, that people have actually sold, like negative narratives, disempowering narrative that people have said from the past, that okay, a woman is supposed to be this, a man is supposed to be that. So if you're not able to question some of these disempowering beliefs, you will notice that you will carry it into your relationship, and then instead of you growing, you know, together as a family, you will notice that you begin to grow apart. So there's certain things that you won't be able to do, like you hear stories about people who would literally have secret accounts, you know, because they don't want their spouses to share. And if you go back to their background, you will notice that either of their parents, you know, did not come clean, or one person was actually overriding the other person. So you will find out that they are fighting unseen battles from the past, right? So some of these things, some of these background challenges are like barriers to vulnerability and growing intimacy.
Yeah, yes, another barrier that I can think of is from the male perspective is the male ego. The male ego. You have to be a man. A man should be a man. Don't do this, don't do that. And what it ends up doing is that it pushes couples apart. Because in the cases where the man is supposed to see the spouse or see the wife, or the wife seeing the husband as a partner, he does not see her as that. The scenario is whenever I'm with my friends and probably we're hanging out, if my wife should call me and say, Suim, where are you? And I tell her, no, I'm at so and so place, I'm with my friend, and listen. When I drop the phone, my friends will say, they are looking at, okay, be a man. Be a man. How can your wife be monitoring you and you are even answering and telling her where you are and all those things? It doesn't come to me as being monitored. It comes to me as being wanting to know if you are okay. So when the male ego is set aside and you see your spouse as a partner that cares about your well-being, that is concerned about your safety, you will break that particular, because there are so many barriers. You break that particular barrier of that male ego and know that this person is not after monitoring you, that rather you see him from the aspect of caring about you, knowing that you're safe, knowing that you are with the right mix. Because one thing that kind of barrier does, again, that kind of openness does for you, is that it keeps you in check. It helps keep you in check. If I tell my wife, for instance, that I am with X kind, if I tell my wife that I'm with Nedum, for instance, and it's 12 o'clock in the night, believe me, my wife will not even bother. Because in as much as she knows that I'm late, but she knows I'm in the right environment. But if I tell my wife that I'm probably with Dinma in her old world, Dinma in her old world, my wife will say, come back home, come back home, come back home.
What do you mean, Dinma? Are you cracking a joke? Well, people think you're serious. So, which old world? What do I have to do for my old world? Maybe let me mute your mic because I don't understand what you're talking about. Let me mute your mic. Anyways, but that
is what I just mean. Yes.
Yeah. So great things to have shared. I wish we would have more time to talk about it, but I want us to move forward. And I think there were key things you talked about. And let me tie it together. So because when we're looking at why vulnerability, I think somebody shared it's a great leadership trait. So I want to build on that. And even what you said, when your wife calls you when you're out like that, you don't see it as monitoring, you see it as care and checking out for you. Some of the things that being vulnerable and having someone to be vulnerable with, especially a spouse that provides that safe space, is that it helps you to readily admit your mistakes. Because when we make mistakes, we are first judging ourselves. But if I'm able to be vulnerable with my partner and say, see what I did, I defeat that inner critic that wants to keep me prisoner of that mistake. I literally am freeing myself from the entrapment of that mistake and not being judged with it. And if my partner now handles this, my vulnerable moment well, and helps me through it, then I will not be in my head, judging myself. So I always say to people, the person being vulnerable is the first recipient of the benefits of vulnerability, not even your partner. Because when you are also vulnerable, it helps you to express your emotions. And we know that when we express our emotions, we are more in charge of it. And you can now get the kind of support that you need. So if somebody is struggling with being vulnerable here, I think you need to sit with yourself and say, what is my own unique barrier? Because we've shared different barriers. Yours could be something else. And for couples here, which was why we encourage couples to attend, have this conversation in your own marriage. Rate your level of vulnerability in your marriage. And then find out how can we increase it, because honestly, that is what can help you go deeper. And if you touched on something very spot on. You talked about shame being one of the barriers of vulnerability. And that is, I say to people that shame wants you to believe that you are not good enough. But you shame by being vulnerable. Right? And that's how to shame. If you allow shame is that Brené describes it as that intense negative feeling that makes you feel that you're not good enough. But when I'm able to share with my partner about shame, and let me share a vulnerable moment here. So when Neduma and I met, whilst Jam was still jamming me and all of that, and when we say met, there's no meeting, no. We knew ourselves from church, so that we'll be defining these things. We knew ourselves from church, and from there. Like joke. Oh, one day we were in what's that place? Tantalizers, where he had gone to have dinner. So usually after prayer meeting, I will escort him to Tantalizers. He will eat. And they do for free right now. I will escort him to Tantalizer. He will eat, and we're gisting. And so one day we're just in this normal Tantalizer, and the man began, in our home, we're going to do this. In my head, I'm like, in our home. Okay. From there, anyways, gist continued. So fast track to the gist I wanted to give you in terms of vulnerability and how it helps to free you from shame. So we started doing whatever we're doing. I don't know that I date till the date. I don't know that I courtship. All I know that we were gisting and preparing for wedding eventually. But at this time, we were not preparing for wedding. And I remember Jam jammed me 3 times. I decided I wasn't going to do jam anymore. my family, my sister was in University of Ilori, and then she got to know about this A-level program where you take it and you join in 200 level. I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I went in to do that. By the time I finished my program, I started to vie to engineering. My dream was to do chemical engineering in University of Ife, but that didn't work. So I looked at Uni-Lorry. What do they have in engineering? Mechanical, civil, electrical, and agricultural. And electrical just looked like what I would love to do, if as much as it wasn't really my thing. And I started to run towards doing electrical. And then when Nedum and I were speaking, I had told him I was getting into electrical. Again, to put context to it, we had somebody, one of the professors, who was helping me to get into electrical. And I had started lectures. In fact, I had done first semester of 200 level, getting to exam period, and my name was not officially on the list of the people that were in school. You know how they'll be telling you, be attending lectures, we're doing that. And I don't tell the man saying electrical that they do. I think he had even maybe say, oh, I'm getting married, she's studying in this school. And that thing did not work. So I did 100 first semester of 200 level, and my name did not come out. I had to now enter the next year, right, with that same A-levels results, which was when at that time I started to do my computer program. But I'm going somewhere. By the next time that I got the admission, I was now admitted into agricultural engineering, which wasn't what I wanted to read, which wasn't what this young man knew that his wife-to-be was reading. But I want to tell you that for months that I was in that first semester agricultural, I could not even tell him that I did not get the admission to electrical, that it was agricultural engineering I was doing. It took a while, but then I'm sharing this because at that moment I would say, hey, let me tell him. So, you know, there was that shame of, we had already told people you are reading electrical. Before then, he had introduced me to his cousins. They were like, oh, what are you reading? Electrical. Will I now come and begin the story? I read one semester. My name did not come out. I was now waiting for name to come. All of that, there was so much shame associated. But even in the so much shame, I was so not comfortable that I was living a lie. Until the day I let him know that I was reading agricultural engineering and not electrical. That is when I myself felt the freedom. I was like, whatever will happen, let it happen, right? Because shame derives its power from being unspoken. Once you keep shame a secret, it will show you pepper. You will not be able to sleep. You will be awake. Somebody will be saying something. You think they're talking about you. Your neighbor will cough. You will say, hey, it's about this thing in your heart. God has exposed it to him. So if you want to defeat shame, shame derives its power from being unspoken, being ignored. You are pretending not to know that that thing is in your head. Meanwhile, it is there. Or you cannot, Sentusa will say, what are you pretending not to know? And shame does not like to be avoided. So I use my own vulnerable story to say how I really felt like a fraud that was not that transparent to our partner. So for somebody like this, maybe it's something you feel, oh, you are ashamed. Maybe if I tell her, maybe if I say this, oh, you think maybe I'm not as spiritual as they thought, or you're not as strong as I thought. But inside yourself, you are dying because you have not talked about that. So maybe take my story to be an encouragement. You don't need to carry something that will weigh you down. Because again, maybe I think I'm going to pass the mic to Nedum. Let's hear your perspective so that you even see that sometimes the things that you are afraid of, the person was not even thinking all of those things you were thinking in your head. So when you now knew that I was not in electrical, it was agricultural, what did that do for you in terms of even your resolution towards the marriage, so that we even know whether all the fears I was having in my head was needed?
I think if in retrospect, I think there was nothing much about it for me. I just see it as an information to that relates to me that maybe I need to know, and I think I didn't have a second thought of it. If you can remember when you said it, there was nothing like, what did you tell me before? You just, for me, it's just giving me an information, and life goes on. So I had no ill feeling or thought or second thought about it. I just knew this is an information I need to know, and that was it. And so I up to today, I've never had a second thought about that, and that's what really happened with that story.
All right. So you see, I in my head, I don't crucify myself. I don't beat myself. I don't say, hey, then go say which one you read this one, you know, read this one, you write jam 3 times. Which guy mumu we won't marry like this? But even the man did not have that in mind. So maybe some things that you are beating yourself up, your partner is not even thinking about that. So it brings me to the next question: is the risk worth taking? Is the risk, because we said that vulnerability is a risk, and you know that you could say the things you are saying, you could get shame for it, the person can use it against you, the person can misquote you, you can risk being ridiculed and all of that. But how do you love? How do you deepen intimacy with someone without being vulnerable? So maybe we should talk about that. Is this risk worth taking, or should we just continue in our pretense and doing as we know what we are doing? Meanwhile, we don't know what we are doing. Team Adigwe, is the risk of vulnerability worth taking?
I would say it is worth it 100%. I say it is worth it 100%. You can. There's no way you will be able to build intimacy. It's like being free. It's like somebody that's been locked up in a cage, and the moment you are let go, you're free. That is what vulnerability can do for you. So I'll say I support it 100%, definitely without doubt. Being vulnerable would definitely help your relationship. I remember even in our own relationship, running a home. Growing up and knowing that a woman in quote now is meant to take care of the home. A woman is meant to be more domesticated than a man and all that. And I now got married to my beloved wife here, who happens to be the opposite of my mother. Okay? Where I was coming from. Not as domesticated as I would have wanted to be. Now, it took me a while to actually for me to accept that, okay, since you are better at this than her, why not take the lead on this particular area? Because like you clearly defined, vulnerability is vast. It is vast. It covers a lot of topics or areas. So the moment I took up that responsibility in that particular field, we narrowed the gap of our relationship. It brought us, assuming we were at 40 yards apart, just that step that I decided to take to say, okay, let me, in as much as they say this is a woman's responsibility, let me take it up. It cut it down to say 30. It brought us a little bit more together, because that is one trash out of the window. One barrier has been pulled down.
Okay. And I think that when we had that conversation, when he actually told me that, he felt that, a woman was supposed to do the X, Y, Z, and I told him that, where I'm coming from, this was not how I was raised. I was not raised I don't know how to do some of those kind of things. And being vulnerable and being open to let him know that I had a lot of people helping me to do some of these things. It's not that I can't do them. I don't have that much of energy in that area. So we decided to leverage on each other's strengths. So it'll be interesting to know that you come to my house, sometimes you see him cleaning, and the more I'm able to understand him bearing his own heart out to me to tell me that, oh, this is how some of the things he expects. Sometimes he sees me also going the extra mile, just do some of those things so that I can speak his love language. So we meet each other at a point because we're able to express ourselves. We're able to share some of the difficult things that some couples will just be maybe swallowing or sweeping under the carpet. We're able to express ourselves. We're able to leverage on each other's strengths, and we're able to accept each other, because now there's some things that he won't even bother me about because he knows that that's not my area of strength. Right? I remember when my mom came for Omugo and my husband finished eating, and he took, both of us ate actually, and he took the tray to the kitchen and he washed. And my mother sat me down. This is not how parents do. How can you be sitting here? Your husband is washing, and over time they have relaxed because they know that we know how to do our own things the way we choose to do them, and we enjoy each other's relationship. It doesn't stop me from respecting him because we're able to redefine what respect means. So oftentimes there was something that you said, prior to this question you asked, and I wanted to add that when couples are in that place where they are assuming that they know what their partner will respond, their partner's response is actually a danger zone, because oftentimes some of the things that we assume remain in the head. It remains a narrative. Like, I remember there was a time when I was pregnant and my husband organized for a way for me to, have meals cooked and all that. He asked his mom, and in my heart I'm like, hey, probably me, I don't know how to cook again. But when we had that conversation, he said no, because I felt that you needed so much support. I wanted you to relax. So in my mind, because of the narratives that has been sold, that once your mother-in-law comes to do this and that, it means they are coming to take over your home. When we had that conversation, it opened me up to understand that I married in a family that were willing to support me. And over time, my mother-in-law and I have grown into, we have a very good, great bond, right? It's not like she's coming here to tell me what to do, but then being able to bear our hearts out, void of those assumptions, it saves a lot of marriages. It will save a lot of marriages from, mishap, because when something happens and you are beginning to tell yourself a lot of things, it's just like when you gave me the wedding gift. He came home late, and in my mind I'm like, okay, we have married now. He's coming home after 9, and I didn't know he wanted to surprise me with my wedding card. So by the time he came home, my face was strong. I was angry, only for him to take me down and say, my friend is calling you. And I said, for what? That today I will fight this man. Today is today. And by the time I saw why he was even being dodgy for the past few weeks, I was tired. So I had to learn that instead of being in that place where I'm assuming that I know, why don't you just ask? Because it makes life easier for couples, right?
And if I may also add, from that other aspect, I remember, she has taken a lot of courses concerning family life and stuff like that. Now, I had to leverage on her own strength. At times when we have our family meetings, it was not a problem for me to sit back and make her the umpire or the cheerleader of our family meeting. The reason is that I believe she has more expertise in that particular field. And accepting the fact that she's better at a particular field is not a problem for me any longer. I let her shine in her strength, and she also lets me shine in my own strength. And by so doing, those barriers are constantly being broken down. Those barriers are constantly being broken down, and it keeps bringing us together.
So vulnerability is key, but then couples need to pay attention to understand their family dynamics. So because one thing works for myself and Udoka, or works for DinmaNedum, may not be the way it works for you, right? So being able to understudy your own family dynamics is one thing that is key, but vulnerability, is something that we'll sign up for anytime as couples, because it has helped us to grow our intimacy.
If we continue this matter, we will not stop. So let me bring Oluchi, come before Timade, because I have like 5 more questions to ask, but I say no. I'm looking at the clock. I'm looking at time. Oluchi, are you there?
I'm here.
Trying. Okay, but I can't see you.
I'm wondering why you can't see me.
I brought you up stage. If I add
We can't
stage,
see you too.
we can't
You
see
still can't
you.
see me?
No,
Really?
but I can hear your voice.
That's strange.
Do you want to go out and come in? Let me just make a
Okay,
sentence.
so I should leave the studio and come back in, right?
Please. Okay, so we're wrapping up. I think it's been a great time with Team Adigwe. Thank you so much for all that you shared with us. Oluchi was just about to come in and just tie this together. But one of the things I would say to couples, like he first said, is don't go and say, you see, we need to talk deeper stuff. We need to go beyond the surface, whatever. I think it's important to allow your partners to share what they are comfortable with sharing at the time they are comfortable with sharing that. Don't be like my husband would say, a confessor, because I like to share the things that are working for us and how we have grown. And I think this part of this conversation becomes very important. So I remember sometime in our marriage, we were just talking about, so let me give perspective. Nedum is the first man, the first relationship I've ever had. I've not had any relationship, so it's my first love. So how life happened, I got married to my first love, right? But then I know he has tried to love some other loves. So one day we're now talking and I'm like, you've never even told me about your past relationships. What even happened? What even happened? And the man, he didn't say anything. I left it. Another day I came again and said, we're now talking. So that girl that said you had a big nose when you were toasting her, what happened? What? And he just looked at me and said, what are you asking me for? What are you asking me? I said, what is it? I just want to know, what has your past relationships? What has happened? He now said, why are you asking me? Are you my confessor? I never forget that thing. I write that for my diary. He now said, are you my confessor? Which one every day? What happened in your past relationship? What happened in your past relationship? To be honest with you, in that moment, I felt bad. Like, in my head, I'm like, our relationship don't pass this level. If people that I feel that are not as deep as we are, they talk these kind of things. Because I'll say, somebody now told me, I met one lady, not in that period, but I'm just using it to add context. And she was telling me we met somewhere at a gathering, and she was showing me that lady. I said, do you know? And she said, yes, that she and her husband dated when they were in university. I'm like, okay. So for me, I'm like, okay, our relationship has gotten to a point. But later I sat with it and said, you know what? The one I'm enjoying the relationship. let me enjoy the one I'm really enjoying. Wetin I wan use wetin happen in past relationship do, aside from just I was taking it as a talk point. But I've known people who will say, okay, so what is it that is hiding? Blah, 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 blah. Or not want to now be open yourself. But I'm using this story to say, allow your partners share what they are comfortable with sharing when they want to share it. Because when you want to force somebody to share what they are not comfortable with, you are now not allowing them be authentic. Remember, when Nedum was defining vulnerability, he said he's being able to be open and authentic with your partner. So don't be like, oh, he's hiding something, she's hiding something. Just be open in the relationship, share as much as you want, and then allow them grow comfortable with sharing what they also want to share with you. I think that's where I want to end this. And Nedum wants to say something about that.
I think to add to what you say, vulnerability is like a muscle. It builds up gradually when you are being receptive, and how you have also able to handle previous vulnerability. So there are things you can't be trusted in, because the little one you were trusted into, you violated it by either gossiping, body shaming, or making it a talking point. One is unnecessary. And so remember that people will always trust you in process and in degree and in deeper level. And that's one thing I want to share with couples. You can't force people into vulnerability. And if you are a man, you can start leading with vulnerability when you yourself begin to initiate conversations and begin to also say, I can be vulnerable as a person and as a leader. And that is I'm so excited about what you just shared. So leading with vulnerability as a man doesn't mean you have to be on top of everything. It simply means know your strength, know your weakness, know your talking points. Let the best person in the team lead that aspect and be very comfortable with it and be willing to share it too. That is being vulnerable. And that is how, as a man, when you live vulnerable, you give your wife the platform, the atmosphere to share her deepest thoughts, deepest feelings without being judged, without being feeling guilt, and without being feeling that I am not part of this man's life. And so thank you, UD and Ife, for being with us, our good friend for so many years, and we'll be working great things together. We deeply appreciate you for honoring us with your time and with your life stories. Thank you. God bless you. Our warm regards to your lovely family. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you.
so
Thank you.
you might want to
Yes, I am.
You might want to use Bell and chase us out of here. So over
Because
to
it's
you.
looking like that, really. But
I
I'm
know.
wondering if anybody has enjoyed the time here. I have. And some of the things I have gotten away from here is that vulnerability is a gift. You earn it. Vulnerability, you earn vulnerability, but it's also a gift. So treasure that gift when your partner becomes vulnerable and open with you on their life's journey. Vulnerability stops you from expecting your spouse to be a spirit. Vulnerability will eliminate every form of assumption. What you don't know, ask. And if your spouse is unwilling at the time to share, you need to give them permission to open up to you as they desire. Remember that vulnerability is almost like an onion that you peel layer by layer, and the sweetness gets deeper as you also become vulnerable yourself. Challenge the stereotypes that you have engaged your relationship with. It will help you to grow. It will build your level of intimacy. And so, remember that there are different forms of vulnerability: emotional, intellectual, physical, spiritual, sexual. Just allow it unfold and enjoy the journey. Marriage is not a destination. It is a journey. And only as you embrace your journey will you have the best of it. Don't go out here hearing what was not said. The template for every family is different. Understand your family dynamics and pursue it. There is a possibility that you leave this place tonight with all the knowledge that you have gotten and you don't know how to manage it. Remember that knowledge has a way of puffing up. Take it easy. Understand yourself first. Begin to give to your spouse the gift of vulnerability. And just maybe you will catapult your relationship to the next realm. Remember again to join the Start Your Marriage Right Academy. It is a wonderful place to get learning, and learning never stops except you want to die. So put yourself out there and do all that you can to have a beautiful relationship. We'll be back here next week. And for the couples next week, the topic next week will be the joy of shared meaning, and we'll have the team Akinyemi. Tomorrow there will be a session for the singles. Please, singles, make yourselves available and you'll be glad for what you had here. Thank you so much for giving us your time today, and I'm sure you got value. God bless you all. Good night. Please subscribe to the Start Your Marriage Right Academy on YouTube. God bless you.